Martin. Welcome to episode 104 of Illuminating Rounds. How you doing?
Hello, Dave.
How you doing? You've been walking.
My word. Oh, I have been walking. I've been walking. So we walked right the way across Scotland down the Great Glen. It was 76 miles. It doesn't sound that bad when you put it like that, 76 miles. But it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But it was spectacular. We were wild camping everywhere.
Yep.
Do you know what? The Scottish, everyone we met, I mean, obviously I can only speak for the people we met, but everybody we met, they were just so beautifully kind and friendly. It was that made the trip for me. But because we were wild camping, I think it made it harder because at the end of the day's walking, we didn't get to have a bath and sleep in a warm bed, and there was no restaurants. We were just in this sort of wilderness. But the best view we had, I didn't send you a picture of it, did I? We camped on this sort of platform, natural platform up in the mountains, overlooking Loch Ness. The clouds and the mist and the mountains. It was a spectacular view.
Send me some photos.
Did you know? I'll send you a photo and put it on. Okay. And did you know that there is more water? There's more fresh water in Loch Ness than all the lakes in England and Wales. It's huge.
Yeah,
it is amazing.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah. If there's a monster anywhere, he's in that loch.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Would you?
Funnily enough, because we went, there was 5 of us, and one of the guys had a lot of experience of wild camping, and that's sort of partly why it made sense to go with someone who'd done that sort of thing before. But I think I'd do it on my own. Or maybe one other person. Because it's really, when you're walking day after day like that, you have to kind of keep going, otherwise you're not going to make it. You get drawn into the community, which is nice. You're all just chatting to each other, and you break up in little groups, then the groups rearrange and you're chatting. You chat, but you're kind of focused on the relationships. But I wanted to be lost in the landscape. Not actually lost physically, but just kind of just me in the landscape, just enjoying the experience. And a bit of me thought, because we're all just having a chat, we could be in a cafe in Cambridge almost. Do you know what I mean? It was no different, apart from being ridiculously uncomfortable. But it was great. No, I definitely would do it again. In fact, I'm planning already. I've got some ideas already what I might do.
Whilst you were out breaking your soles of your feet, I was in Seville. I was having 90-minute spa massages and enjoying flotation tanks and stuff. And then I followed it up.
I bet you didn't enjoy it, really.
Do you know something? I've got to say something, right? I am too polite to say to someone, please do gentle massages, because it feels a bit too seedy. So I have to just go with whatever they do. They massage you too hard. It just hurts.
Yeah.
It just... I think this might be Emperor's New Clothes in that people love a massage. But it's just painful.
But do they? Yeah.
There's no need for them to dig their thumbs into the back of my calves quite as deep as they go. It didn't do any good. It didn't fix anything, change anything. Just hurt for 50 minutes of the 90 minutes.
Maybe it's that seedy thing. Maybe it is literally they've got to do it so it hurts in case it feels a little bit.
Jesus. Yeah, it was a lovely. Seville is a lovely part of the world. Very nice. And then I went to Cologne for. Funnily enough, so we went to Double One, and we should talk about the Double One tournament.
Of course we should.
Excellently run by Gary and Morris, and we had a good time there. One of the scenarios I played there was Smoyer's. Was it Smoyer's something or other? The one where he's in Cologne, taking on a panther, and I completely diced Simon Staniforth in that one. Poor Simon. And I'll tell the story later on about that. But basically, it's a city fight in Cologne, and you're taking on this panther. I got home and my friends were talking about going to Germany to the Cologne game to watch that. So I thought, okay, well that's great. I'll do some search, did some research, and as part of my kind of feed, I got the Cologne YouTube colorization of the battle that Smoyer fought against this panther. So you can search colorization Cologne World War II or whatever, and you'll see this kind of thing. You're sending me photos, aren't you? I can see
Yeah, no, I am, but I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay.
It's
So so basically, there I am watching the Cologne, battle with the Panther that I just fought in ASL, and literally
yeah.
the next day I ended up in Cologne, and I'm seeing this
Wow,
massive
isn't
twin
that funny?
towers of the cathedral and everything. So it's it
Yeah.
was pretty special. The football was terrible
Yeah.
there, so that wouldn't recommend going and watch England away anytime soon.
Well,
Obviously, we're recovering from yesterday's result. So,
yeah.
but as I said, the best team won there, and we're gonna leave it there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's that.
Oh, can I do my joke? My joke.
Please do.
Someone said to me that England were better on paper than Spain, but on the grass, the Spanish were definitely better.
Yeah, that's very true. Very
There we
very
go.
true. Very true.
I thought
So
that myself.
double one. What did you think of it? How did you get on?
Oh, it's good. Well, I think I lost every game. That's not true. No, I won one game, but it was great getting together, getting everybody together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't as hot as some years. Sometimes it's too hot,
Yep.
frankly. But it was fine. It was nice going out for a few beers.
Yeah.
Had a few games.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to
yeah.
pull up who I played because I remember playing Andy Bagley a couple of times,
Yeah.
and I played Paul Legg, and then I played Simon Seyforth. And all the games were nice and close. There was some tricky games in there as well. So I played an Estonian Interlude, and that was an interesting game. I don't think you've played this. If you're Friendly Fire,
I don't think I've played it. No.
So it's all about that you've got the Russians are coming from one side and the Estonians are kind of they're both trying to get back to a big building, and the Russians have to try and interdict. But it's very, very difficult for the Russians to interdict. And it's very interesting because in the setup, you're allowed to set up on level 0 or level 1 of buildings for the Russians. And I didn't take a lot of notice of that. And then when I started playing, I think I suddenly realised, and I kind of told myself almost from the start, I'd lost this scenario because I hadn't set up on level 1 where there was a line of sight to the bridge hex that I thought I could get a -2 shot off on. And it would be like a 1-2. But I think that whole 1-2 was there to try and discourage the Estonians from running past the bridge on the first turn to get back to this big village that they've got to defend. And so I basically just thought, I've messed up the setup, I've lost this. And all the way through, I was just, I don't think I played disheartened, but I was very disheartened about it because I thought it's a silly mistake to start with. I should have taken the hint from the setup instructions. And so we were chatting about it at the end, and I lost the game, and I didn't get close to winning it. I mean, it was the Estonians were in every, like when you get a large multi-hex building and it's level 2s, and they were in like every hex and every floor, and you're like, oh, I can't get one guy in this, let alone more than the Estonians. And I just assumed I just messed up. And then we looked at it afterwards, and we realised that there's really no line of sight there other than a 1+1 shot. So the line of sight that I was thinking that I would have had was actually blocked. And it looks really tricky. So if you've played the Estonian Interlude and you've won as the Russians, let us know about it because it's a tough one. So we played that, and then I played. This is one of those scenarios that the title of it gives it away. So fish in a barrel. Right? So, and what's brutal is it's one of my favourite tanks, right? The T-3485. And you get 4 of them, so it's brilliant. But the Germans have 2. It's not the Hellcat. It'll come to me in a minute. But they're the big tank destroyers, the open top tank destroyers they get. They're the really good ones. And
Pershing.
Well, is it Pershing? Isn't that the American one? This is the German.
Oh, sorry, this is the German. I beg your pardon. Sorry.
But anyway, but it's something that sounds American. I always think they're Americans. Anyway, and you just can't get. You're trying to get on the board, and as you're trying to get on, these tank destroyers just hit you. You kind of, but you only need 12 points or so in the building or in the area, and you got the infantry as well, so you can kind of try and scoot round, or you can try and leave them to the last minute. But my poor tanks were the fish, and the battlefield was the barrel. And then Dead-Eyed Smoya, which was the one. So this is the one that the Americans have got to take a churchy kind of cathedral thing, obviously the cathedral that we saw, and then they've got to take kill a hidden panther. And the panther doesn't have to be revealed at all, and the panther has to have line of sight to a particular hex or one of two particular hexes. So it kind of breeds all kinds of sneakiness that the Germans can do, because what they can do is you can start this panther hip, and on your last turn you can come on from almost from off board. It's like so far away you could be hip, and you burst through a building, and as long as you don't go into the cellar, you'll have line of sight to this hex. And then the Americans have only got one turn, and you've got the TEM plus the Panther's armor and everything to try and deal with. And I was fumbling the scenario, just awfully. Managed to take the building again, another one of these big kind of double level buildings with all the half squads everywhere. But the Germans have a lot of conscripts and poor ELR, so you generally get through the building okay. But I had no idea really where this Panther was. And Simon started it up, and Simon, because obviously Simon is a beacon, a bastion of truthful play. He started it up because he wanted to button up his tank, and because it's hip, he obviously had to reveal it. So less honest players would have just forgotten that they'd said, "Oh, I could expose," because you just assumed that the tank was buttoned up. Yeah. But he wanted to do it because he wanted to do the close combat weapon if I'd got into close combat. So he goes into motion, he buttons up and reveals his tank on the last turn. So my last kind of half turn, I've got to kill this Panther. And I charge my Pershing and I charge my other Sherman, and they both get killed by Panzerfaust and Panzerschrecks. And then I've got the bazooka toting half track, and that comes around the map and parks next to the Panther, fires and breaks the bazooka. So I've got like 3 squads left to try and take this Panther out. And so they all just charge at the Panther, and the half squad's taken out a bit of them, but they're actually okay, and they get there. They all pass the Patsy check, and then they get the first shot because it's obviously it's sequential for close combat. And so I'm up against a Panther in motion, and I mean, bear in mind that these are 6 morale Marines or 6 morale Americans with a -1 leader. So they're lucky to get into close combat with the Panther. And then I rolled a 5 or something to immobilize, or a 4 maybe, but whatever it was. But immobilized the Panther on the first attempt.
Made it much more vulnerable.
Right, but then he gets his close combat attack.
Yeah.
And he rolls he rolls a 3 morale check, I think, against my guys.
Ugh.
And I mean, again, 6 morale leaders, maybe it's a 2 morale check, but anyway, but basically the leader pinned. And then 2 squads pinned and 1 broke. So I had 1 squad left to attack. There was a pinned squad against a Panther, and I needed a 3 or less to do it. And I rolled, and the dice came up a 1, and the other dice was spinning, but it was spinning on a 5. You could see, and then it did this, and it was a little chef kiss, and it spun back to a 2. And poor Simon was like, the guy did not deserve to lose that at all. I mean, it was ridiculous. No. So yeah, I did okay on that one. That's
ASL for you. Yeah.
And poor, I mean, we've all been there from Simon's point of view. He played like a perfect game. I mean, from good setups. I mean, Simon, by the way, is an amazing guy to play against, because not only will he get all of your counters out, but he'll get some half squads, and he'll get the DM'd versions of your weapons out as well for you. He just, he's like a perfect game host. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And he's extremely pleasant to play against. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Didn't deserve that at all. So I felt really bad, but there you go. And
so you ruined his day in return for
absolutely. So I think the only thing that kind of went wrong, I think, for the tournament, and again, we love Double One. It's a great tournament.
Yeah.
They do the secret scenario, don't they? And it was quite nice weather outside, and everyone is kind of used to going to the pub at about sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock. And there was quite a long scenario in the morning, and I think most people were kind of finishing about like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock is the start for the new, like, kind of the secret scenario. And it's the scenario that do you remember what it's called? I don't remember what it's called.
I can't remember what it's called.
Death from Above, or Wings from Above, or something. It's was it Friendly Fire? And it's the one where the planes have got to take off on runways, and there's snow, and you're attacking with cavalry, and it's across 3 boards, and it's an amazing looking scenario. And I think almost to a man, every person in the tournament was like, "Oh my God, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work for what's a lovely day, and we're all going to go to the pub, and there's a, it was just, everyone was kind of, so my game lasted half a turn. I think yours lasted half a turn. I agreed to draw. You'd had enough. You were just.
I conceded. Yeah.
And it's a shame because
the thing is, I think you're right. If we were doing it, for example, on illuminating rounds, if we got time to study it, because most people have to brush up on the air rules, don't they, and things like that, and cavalry. Although I think we were told to brush up on cavalry.
Right.
But this is a very unusual scenario. It isn't kind of like the Axis are there, the Allies are there, and they got to go through them, which is sort of, you can kind of grasp that situation very quickly in most scenarios. I've got to capture that building. There was perhaps numerous. It was difficult to work out how to defend. There were numerous ways to attack. And I think as a scenario, it deserved time, and we didn't have any time. And in my game, we had to just decide who the winner was because we'd taken too long. And then to be presented with that, it was a bit. It was the wrong way for that scenario, I think, to be presented at a tournament.
I can't remember what it was called. I'm trying to look it up now to see if I can find it. Because
but it would be interesting to play one day properly.
Yeah, no, agreed. We'll have to. I'll find it out for the next scenario, and we'll try and figure it out. But basically, someone will remember it. But planes taking off, cavalry charging across the snow. It would have been good fun to play if we were all up for it. So it was the only thing that kind of think was a shame. And it's a shame because it would have been great if everyone was in the mood for playing it, and we could have all talked about how it had gone for each one. But anyway,
exactly.
That's that. So we have been playing in person. We played a game, Twilight the Reich. We played Kilian's bloody St. Kilian's bloody sword.
St. Kilian's bloody sword, and there was a very good reason that we decided to play this face to face.
There wasn't there? There was. Yeah. So I got my new gaming table and decided
from Aldi.
From
discounted, cheap, inexpensive Aldi table. Yeah.
It really wasn't. No. So it's a Geekinson table. Do you know what? It does a very similar job to a cheap table from Aldi, but it's. I mean. Yeah, gaming tables are. I'll put some pictures up later on of what it's looking like. It's the kind of like if you want to have a nice time playing it, but it does. I'm going to say it does nothing to, it's very nice, okay, but it won't improve your entertainment or gaming at all.
There are things that did. I mean, it was nice how it was lit up and so on. I think you can put a cover over it, or you can put the cover over it so you can come back to the game the next day.
Yeah.
But something I noticed, which is a perennial problem especially with starter kit boards, is that if we moved them slightly, it didn't seem to matter. You could easily move them back, slide them back into position. I mean, obviously, it wasn't blue tacked down like you might do on an Aldi table. I might try and blue tack it one day just to see your face when you realise what I'm doing.
So there's just because you went on. So there's professional grade, casino grade felt on this table. It's like it's nice. Now that means if you brush it one way or brush it the other way, you get a very different colour. It's a very tactile looking, but it's definitely you definitely get a bit OCD about it. I must admit, like Alice came around, my daughter came around, and she was playing a game on it, and she just spent the entire time just brushing it to make sure it just looked right. It
feels very nice. It looks so nice when you've done it. Do you know, we had a coffee and you gave me a little mat to put my coffee on, but I couldn't put it on the table.
No, that's
I know you're going to get coffee.
I'm waiting for coffee mugs holders.
And that'll solve that problem because I thought there's no way. Look, I know you don't mind, but I couldn't live with myself if I spilt a whole cup of coffee over this.
We have history of tea going over tables, don't we? So that. So I guess the big difference as well is that you are sitting above the game. So whereas instead of it being level on a table, you're sitting above it. Before I'd got a table like this, I kind of wondered whether that was kind of was going to be a bit weird or whether it would hurt your arms a bit. What did you think? I mean,
it was fine. I wanted the same thing. But I didn't really notice that. In fact, there's something slightly godlike about having your arms above and looking down on it. It's a real ego trip.
That's nice. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, but like I say, a complete luxury item, not again, the way I think people look at these things is their heirloom quality. our parents are leaving us trinkets like, I don't know, old China dolls that my mum got from a catalogue and bits and pieces like this. And we'll leave stuff that we think are very useful and nice that the kids won't care about at all. But yeah, this
Possibly
is
not. Yeah.
this is.
Well, James, put me down for the table, Dave.
Oh, okay,
just
all
in
right.
case. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah. Anyway, so Twilight of
Yes.
the Reich. Our
All
first
right.
scenario from Twilight of the Reich.
Yeah.
What do we think? Now, this is interesting because I guess the first thing is there's two main things about three. Let's see, three things. One is it's expensive. Okay, that's the first thing about Twilight of the Reich. 17 scenarios, four map boards, a whole bunch of overlays, some new infantry types. Maybe some new vehicles, because I know that they haven't updated the chapter H yet, so presumably there's something new in there. The 537s that if you haven't got from Sir Mary Glee's, you'll get those. I think there's some Russian assault engineers as well. I think you might get. Expensive for what you get. It's expensive. I mean, I think that's. I always think that like kind of action packs used to be good value for like 2 boards and 10 scenarios, and they would come in at about sort of like $30-$40, and this is kind of double that. So maybe $60-$70, maybe $80, and it feels I think it's at like $120-$130. I think somewhere like that, because it's a big box and there's counters as well, which obviously you don't get with action packs. Having said that, the other side about it is it's a core module, and I'm kind of surprised they've kind of made it a core module rather than like an action pack, like an extended action pack. Do you have any thoughts on that bit to start with in terms of like price?
Yeah. So I suppose you're getting 4 of the extra wide boards, aren't you? Which and they feature built up cities like board 1, kind of built up sort of cities, and there's perhaps a shortage of those. I don't think there are any others in the extra wide range up until now. Now we've got 4. So I suppose that's a nice addition. I don't really understand why it would be a core module. There's no new nationality, is it? It's just added an unusual counter type to the mix. But the extra wide boards are very good. At first, I was a bit kind of just a load of overlays to cut out. But I do quite like the overlays, and I kind of looked when I've been cutting them out, so looking at them more closely. And I think that is something that's missing. If you're trying to, if somebody were a scenario designer, quite a lot of action takes place or seems to take place around railway stations and things like that, and you've got to just sort of pick a big building and sort of go, right, that's the railway station. There's a whole range of different railway stations now in the pack, and that I think is quite nice. The scenarios are chunky, aren't they?
Yep.
On the whole, so I suppose they're good value. They represent quite a lot of value in the scenarios, more than perhaps the action packs, which you used to get a variety, didn't you? But tended to be smaller. But it does seem like a lot of money, and it's interesting because, of course, as an ASL player, there only needs to be one geo board in there, and you pretty much got to get it, haven't you? Because you're going to want that. You want the complete set. It's not that I'm a completist by any stretch of the imagination, but I want all of the core components so I can sit down and play any scenario.
Scenarios in terms of like from the total amount. I mean, there's 129 hours worth of scenarios there. If you just
amazing, isn't it?
If you just play one side on each one.
So I've only played one of them, obviously. I did worry because they're all on these city boards. I thought that they might be repetitive, that they might be quite similar. The one would feel, but actually, the one we played felt quite unique, didn't it? It didn't feel like a very standard sort of city fight. And if the others have that kind of that imaginative and whatever, I think it probably is a very good pack.
Yep. No, that's absolutely true. In terms of like what you think in terms of the rules themselves, what do you think about? So there's some key things that apply to all the scenarios in the pack. So a little bit like Death to Fascism, where they come with their own set of rules, and the rules are very similar to the Death to Fascism pack. So predominantly, we're talking about hidden support weapons if you are setting up on board, hidden leaders until you move. So these are, your leader counters don't go on the map until you move or lose concealment, and etc. They've got a common theme about kind of buy-in weapon points, so you can buy demo charges and things like that. There's a hip allocation, a little bit like the Japanese, isn't it? So the scenario defenders get a squad or so
one squad,
of hip units, and then we've got the kind of, some people might say the grudge rules, but the sensible rules about vehicle crews not abandoning vehicles unless they're immobile, and then there's an exception about whether making sure that the immobilization hasn't happened through an ESB.
Yeah, I love that exception.
Came back to bite you, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
So, but there's that, and also the vehicle crews act like single man counters for building control, which is funny enough. We were talking about that in the Double One, where that potentially could be a rule that could have been applied to the rule book anyway, as an errata, and I assume they don't do that for balance purposes of all. But I don't.
Sure.
And I'm one of these people. I wouldn't care about breaking the balance of old scenarios if we have, a new style of play in them, and I don't mind that. I think interestingly, I think Kurt in his last round table talked about how scenarios really aren't replayed very often, and so scenarios these days are being developed for one play in mind because they just don't get replayed. Now, obviously tournament scenarios are going to be the exception to that, and there will be a new generation of tournament scenarios that come from newer packs, because there'll always be a demand for that. But it's interesting that the majority of scenarios are just considered to be played once, and then we move on. So do I really care if all the balance of historical scenarios have changed slightly because vehicle crews have?
It's interesting. The special rules that they've applied are quite good, but they also did it in Drop Zone Malem. It's very, very similar rules in Drop Zone Malem. Everything can set up concealed, which you might say is realistic. You can't see where the enemy's support weapons are, which is probably realistic. You don't know where their sort of important leaders at single man counters are, which is realistic. But that's not the way ASL is played, is it? So it seems like. What I'm interested in is this a new direction? This is how things are going to be in the future.
Yeah.
Or is this something that they just thought was very appropriate to this fighting towards the end of the war or something?
And to me, it can't be. It can't be that this battle had those nuances that other battles don't necessarily have, or these battles. So
the sense is it's almost like a change in the rules, although it's not being backdated. This is what ASL will look like in the future. I mean, I quite like a lot of it, and I quite like being able to purchase. Do I want a machine gun or 3 demolition charges and making those sorts of choices and stuff? That's quite fun, isn't it?
So then we get to the question about whether or not those changes enhance the gameplay and they're worth the overhead of the record keeping. So what are your views on whether they enhance the gameplay? So predominantly this is, I can't tell you can't tell where my big kill stacks are.
No.
You don't know where my Panzerschreck might be, etc., etc. What do you think about that in terms of enhancement?
Yeah, so I'm the record keeping in terms of like buying support weapons. There isn't really any, is there, apart from jotting it down in case you need to show your opponents at the end, I suppose. It's a little bit more difficult knowing what your own thing is, isn't it? Your own forces. You especially when you start moving around, you start going, where the hell did I put that Panzerschreck? Where is the medium machine gun? So my honest feeling is I don't know. Like if that's ASL in future scenarios published by MMP, I don't know. Maybe it's something I'd get used to, but it's definitely in the balance whether those benefits, and there are benefits, are worth the extra amount. I mean, there are some times, aren't there, where people go, look, I'm just going to put all my hip stuff on because you're going to see it all in a minute anyway, because everyone struggles with it. Yeah, I don't know, Dave. What do you think?
So my feeling were that I actually think that the ASL rules take into account the ability to hide your weapons with concealment counters and extra concealment counters that you can use to pad up stacks. So rather than flatten everything out, why not just give you a few extra concealment counters and let you fake where they might be? And the rules take care of that. So from that perspective, and I think they are more elegant.
It's almost not adding anything.
Right. So a number of times I was struggling on because like how when you've got a hip guy and you know suddenly your opponent starts looking at their notes and you're like, wait a minute, I know I'm near a hip guy here. I've got to be careful.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit like that where I was trying to remember where my bazooka was and where this guy is, and then there was a couple of times where because I think leaders and weapons get revealed or are placed on board at slightly different times. I think leaders go on when you move, and weapons go on when you're unconcealed or when you're broken or you transfer it or drop it.
Yeah, it's those sorts of unconcealed definitely and broken.
But I don't think when you move, I don't think weapons are revealed.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So a couple of times I was kind of like, oh wait a minute, have I cheated you here accidentally? And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I'm trying to play as fairly because I hate the idea of forgetting to reveal my bazooka to you when I needed to for some reason, and then now I should have, but now I'm going to fire this bazooka. Oh, by the way, it's here, and then you going, well, okay, I knew it couldn't have been there because you did X, Y, Z, so it should, that kind of thing. So I didn't like that, and I didn't like the fact that, as what happened in the game, we had an ELR and bits and pieces, and suddenly I'm trying to panic about whether I've written the wrong letter down for the squad or whether it's one of the units that's ELR'd, and
because now you don't know which one it is.
And these are easily resolved. You're writing down not just the letter but the squad type as well and things like that. And then there was one where literally I think it was a B, and I wrote down an S because our eyes are getting worse, and that's what happens. These counters aren't particularly big, and the letters are even smaller. So there was that aspect as well. So I didn't enjoy. I didn't feel like the fog of war was enhanced enough by the fact that my weapons were unconcealed. I think, I think there are better ways of doing that. For example, maybe you get one hip bazooka. That's fine. I can cope with that.
Yeah.
But like I say again, I prefer the idea of using concealment counters to fake where they might be.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think it is a little bit harder for the attacker because all of your units just look like a multi-man counter,
right.
And I'm approaching something. So if you've got a stack in a normal scenario, it might be a dummy, or it might be a squad with a medium machine gun and a -1 leader or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, any of your squads could have been that.
Yeah.
So I've got less information. I have got less information in playing like this than in the other way. But I 100% take on board and to some extent agree with the the record keeping aspects of it.
The flip side was,
I'm not that bright as ASL players go, and it's a whole new dimension of trying to remember where my assets are.
Yeah. But yours as well as theirs. The other side of it as well is that you have to be very careful about what your concealment counters that you get to use for reinforcements or for padding out the scenario defense go a lot further, because now if you get 6 counters, those 6 counters can really represent 3 stacks of anything, because you haven't got to worry about them. Just going to usually you'd do 2 lots of 3, wouldn't you? Possibly 3 lots of 2, but now you always will do 3 lots of 2, and they could be anything, could represent anything. So they go a little bit further from that perspective. That's it. I like the rules about the vehicle crews. I think most ASL players will tell you that they don't like the idea of vehicle crews jumping out. And funnily, I don't think I'm sure I've done it. I don't remember anyone really ever doing it to me, vehicle crews jumping out of their vehicles to capture a building. It's bizarre. I don't see, and I know it's a problem that people are worried about. Definitely at higher level play, it would be prevalent, I think. But so I've got no problems with that. And again, I think that should be a core rule change, that maybe I don't even mind them jumping out of the vehicle. I get that they are more valuable than the vehicle itself, and I think that's reflected in the CVP cap and the CVP that they're worth. But in terms of what a vehicle crew can achieve, absolutely make them like a single man counter, so they can't really capture buildings and stuff. But personally, I like the idea of I can jump my guy out and it can come and help me do something crazy at the last thing. But I accept that we want to try and keep the game as faithfully.
But then half tracks and things, you want the crew to be able to get out, don't you? Especially American half tracks that can be full squads and stuff, I suppose.
Yeah,
but I mean,
and I think there's
those
an
weren't in
exception.
this
I think
scenario,
there's an
so it's
exception
not,
to those. Yeah,
not relevant. Yeah.
But having said that, I think the other thing that's part of the Twilight is that the weapons that can be dismantled that come from off board have to be dismantled. And I think in the concealment, I think everything starts off concealed. But kudos to Bill Cirillo, by the way, who replied almost instantly to my rules question, because I was concerned about whether or not the defender could set up concealed, given that you may have been able to set up on board with one of your hip units. You had an option on your SSR.
That's right.
To set up hipped.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that. But Bill wrote back very quickly to explain that was because of the rule in the SSR.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Set up. So there was that. But yeah, I think other than that, we had a good time, didn't we? So we can talk about. We can show you some photos of the game. So what we got here is this is the kind of setup before the units are on board. So we can talk about why don't we talk about the scenario itself, Martin? You've got the card there. You can talk about.
I have. Yes. Okay. So is everybody seeing it the same as me with the rubble at the bottom?
That's right. Yeah, but rubble on the left.
There's quite an extensive pre-game rubble sequencing, as you can see. There's a lot of rubble there, and actually that causes real difficulties for the attacking.
Yep.
Germans, because some of these roads are blocked or virtually blocked, or there's lots of bog checks to kind of use them. So that's quite interesting.
And the principle is you're coming on the top left, aren't you? And potentially the right hand side as well.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the forces?
Yes, certainly. So the Americans have two forces. One force sets up on board 18A, so that's the top board, round about that group of factories on the overlay. Can people see that?
Yes, yeah.
But just two American squads can set up there, so really quite a small force. Then the Americans have a bigger force of 6.5 squads that can set up more or less on the other board, I suppose.
That's right.
And the key buildings they're protecting. On the top board, it's all of those all the multi-hex buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, isn't there, multi-hex buildings. And then on the bottom board, 16A, it's the church next to the double hex graveyard that's worth a lot of victory points, isn't it?
So this is worth, the church is worth 4 points. Each of the factories here on the right-hand side for us is worth 1 point. And then you've got this road here, this little road segment here, that if the Germans capture or keep 1.5 squads off or away from this, they will win. So then we get victory points for tanks, one for each for tank that's immobilized or recalled, etc. And we get one for every 5 points of infantry.
So essentially, it's about building up the victory points, but there is a way for the Germans to win regardless of victory points if they're able to keep the Americans away from that road, which looks really, really difficult actually, because it's right in the middle of between the two American forces, isn't it? That's road.
Right. That's right. You get a couple of Stugs and a couple of Panzer 4Js, I think, is it?
Yeah. So basically, each force, because I have a force coming from the top and a force coming from the bottom, both have a Panzer 4J and a Stug 3L. Yeah. And in addition to that, about 10 squads each side.
Right, exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm showing now the my setup before we noticed it was a little bit illegal. So for those, so we can see that I've got kind of a lot of units set up on the left hand side. Now I think I made a big mistake here in that I didn't spot. There's a second level building that has been rubbled, and the falling debris has kind of caused a nice actual line of sight here from this kind of top of this second level here. And I really should have had something here, and I didn't spot that was as crucial as it should have been. It's worth mentioning that you can hit one guy outside of my setup area as well.
Yeah.
And that was quite a challenge because I didn't know where or if you were going to do that and etc. So that kind of made me a bit wary. On the right hand side.
Do I say what it was? Or
So I think it was you had him down for us somewhere near was it this kind of
Yeah, so it's row P, I think, on
P16, is
P
it?
on board 16A.
Yeah.
And I can't click on it because we're not on the thing.
No.
But okay, if I zoom in,
Yeah, we've got it here. You had a flamethrower and a leader and a
P16.
Yeah.
So I had a full squad with a medium machine gun and a leader carrying a flamethrower, which is quite a big commitment of resources, I thought. But I didn't think you'd think it would be there.
That's right. I didn't know. I
and
thought
you didn't. Yeah.
No, that's
and in fact, I missed an opportunity to use it. I wasn't sure whether to reveal it. We'll see it. We'll talk about perhaps when we come to it. But I wasn't sure whether to reveal it for a really, really good shot.
Exactly.
And I wish I had. Yeah.
I assumed it was up in N5 on board 16A. I thought you were going to try and kind of catch me as I was falling back, or across one of these roads here. But So anyway, so I'm showing now the setup that I've got with everything concealed and in theory legal. So this is just me all kind of concealed and legal. And the plan is to fall back to the church. So the church, obviously 4 points, 5 points with, if I read some of the ARs previously done on the archive, people talking about the fact that the factories fall fairly quickly and then the road is generally quite safe. So the idea is that the Germans are going to get 5 points from the factories. I'll get 4 points for the church. I'll hold on to the road, and then whether or not I'm going to be able to take on more stuff than you. Now, funny enough, I said at the start of this scenario, I wonder whether it will turn into you running away from me or not at the end to preserve victory points. And we'll see. So I'm now showing
Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I think my take was similar. I thought it'd be very, very difficult to capture the 4 building. I did think that I might be able to catch you out on the road if you just had like 1.5 squads quite near my flamethrower.
Yep.
Something like that. I thought maybe I'd be able to like sort of, but you also get the last move, don't you?
That's
right.
I
thought I wouldn't be able to capture the church, but I would be able to capture the factories. That's 5 points for me and 4 points for you.
That's right.
And then it's going to boil down to the casualties. So I did kind of have a plan to try and kill Americans. That sounds wrong, but it always does. ASO it always does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I did sort of think, well, I'm going to try to kill things, get some CVP.
You came running on the top. I think I caught a guy out fairly quickly. Someone got some open ground shots. But you got your tanks in. You had a nice critical hit on a building that caused a blaze. The rubble in here. You rolled some bits and pieces here, and you took the factories to start with fairly quickly. You got your tanks into reasonably nice positions, and I think it looked quite good for you to start with. I think that was the general feeling. I pulled some guys back. I had a hip guy, by the way. I think in K9, I had a medium machine gun. And,
that did take me by surprise.
Yeah,
in fact, I never really dealt with him. I think he.
Yeah, and I only caught him as you were running guys down into the rubble across the road. I didn't actually catch anyone in the road.
I nearly cried, I think, because it was a full stack, wasn't it?
That's right.
I mean, they weren't all killed, but they were, they're all ELR'd and broken and crawled back into the nearest building or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a tank battle for us on the right hand side near the factories. So I brought one of my tanks around the left hand side. I brought one. So
this is on till turn 3, isn't it, where you bring those on? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that I've got you here where I've got your Stug. We can't turn both ways, and I'm gonna catch him. And then you manage. Oh, you ESB'd one of your tanks in between the factories.
Yeah. Which meant the crew can't get out. They've got to sit in a factory that they've already captured.
Yeah, possibly the worst place for him.
And you get the point for it as well, because by the rules, main armament,
but you Panzerschrecked one of my tanks.
Yeah, that was genius.
Yeah, your other tank then destroyed my tank.
Yeah.
And then you lost this guy. Your tank then got beaten by my bazooka.
You've got lots of you've got bazookas around, haven't you? I think your reinforcements brought bazookas on.
That's right. And this guy here with the bazooka rolled a double 1 to hit and a double 1 to kill without stepping outside the building. So he ended up in a ball of black blast.
So
But,
we pretty much lost all the tanks up there, and that was the side where the tank battle went well for me. Tank battle didn't go well on the other.
Yeah.
No, I didn't lose the last one, who went off to do something else.
That's right. So I got a tank in line here. I think you intensified this guy down at my guy behind the wall. And was this is it a Persian? I can't remember what it was. A Hellcat or something. I can't remember what it is.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's the GMC one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, you recalled your one.
Yeah.
I got my tanks kind of closer to the church to try and defend here, but you were pushing quite strong. You pretty much captured all of the factories. We had a bit of a mistake here. You didn't DM this stack